All right. So, hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I'm your host, intuitive counselor and spiritual guide, Victoria Shaw. And today I want to talk about a question that has been posed to me because of some events in the world. And I don't usually talk about current events that much. I feel that there's a lot of people doing that, and I want to keep the vibe pure and neutral and not agitated by all the stuff that's going on because you got plenty of other outlets for doing that. But this particular one just got me thinking. It got me thinking. And so there has been not so long ago a member of the spiritual community who's been in the news for not walking the talk of their teachings, and it's been a pretty big deal. It's been a pretty big deal, and a lot of the people that I know in the spiritual world, many of them know this person. I do not, or have had interactions with them, or have read this person's books. I've done absolutely none of that other than shared an editor with them many, many years back for a hot minute, which I thought was pretty cool at the time. Um, but a lot of people are really disturbed by this, right? Because the idea is that when someone is putting themselves forth as a spiritual leader or spiritual teacher, there's kind of this expectation, right, that they walk the talk, that they're living up to what they're teaching. And so it feels a little bit disconcerting, I think, when you've come to love the teachings that come from someone, and then you learn, right, that in their personal life they're not living up to that standard. And of course, there's nothing new about this in the spiritual world and in life in general, right? Like there's a lot of times where, the teacher is, not necessarily following their own teachings, right? So I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to talk about it in a couple of ways. And the first one is to understand, very most importantly, and this is coming from the guides, that it's not the teacher that matters, right? It's not the messenger, it's the message. It's the message, right? And there's so much teaching, the guides say, in this world, right? And a lot of our religious indoctrination was about that too, that the messenger and sometimes the teaching, the message, right? The written fact, but oftentimes too in organized religion, they say the messenger became really, really important, right? You needed to listen to this person's interpretation of that connection to God and not that person's, right? And so there has been, they say, for many, many years in the human culture, in our consensual shared reality, this idea that there's a middleman to source, to God, to spirit, and that some sources are right and some sources are wrong. And they would like to let us completely let go of that whole idea. They would like us to completely let that one go. One of my favorite songs by the Avett Brothers. I didn't know it until I heard it performed live, and I might have shared it before, but the chorus goes, "My God, my God, my God, and I don't need a middleman." And I believe they're Christian, the band. I don't know. I've never talked to them, but I think that that's so powerful, regardless of what your religious or spiritual background is, because it is in my understanding, and I think this is where the guides were heading, and they'll stop me if I'm wrong. Um, that we don't need anyone to stand between ourselves and our highest knowing. Like we have the answers inside of us. We're all spiritual beings having a human experience. Each and every one of our beautiful selves has a direct connection to source, to God, to our highest selves, because we are that incarnate, right? And so we that connection is our birthright. We all have it. And more importantly than that, they say, or maybe not more importantly, but as importantly, they say, and I want to grab the thread, like your particular manifestation or emanation or interpretation or perspective, right? About how you connect with your own inner divinity, right? Or as the divine as you understand it as being something outside of yourself, which it most definitely is not, they say. That uniqueness in your view, in your lens, in your perspective, in the way that you choose and experience, choose to make and experience that connection. And I'm getting this as closely as I can from their verbiage. Um, that's the uniqueness that you bring to the table here in this human world. That's like the whole name of the game, right? And so to defer to somebody else to bridge that gap is doing yourself and all of humanity a really great disservice, because you are your own unique and divine channel, right? For the divine. Like that is what you are. And so the more that you can understand that and allow that and connect with that, the better. Now, does this mean that we don't need or value spiritual teachings? No, not at all, because we live in this shared space, right? And different perspectives, right, can be very helpful for us to find our own truth and to awaken one another. And you know, my favorite Ram Dass quote, we are all walking each other home, right? And that is as it should be. We are all on this journey together. And so at times, somebody else's perspective or wisdom might awaken something in you. Maybe they've seen something that you haven't discovered yet, or you haven't discovered it from this vantage point. Or maybe they say something that you don't like and it makes you think, oh my God, I don't think that, but I think this, right? But whatever it is, the messages are really part of our shared experience. There's nothing wrong with them. The trick is not to value anything out there above and beyond your own unique connection to source. Right. And, you know, as I say before every reading, and I talk about this again and again on the show, but if you ever get a reading with me before your first reading, what I will tell you is this: I will tell you I'm a conduit or channel for your own highest guidance. That is the work that I see myself as doing. And so you, as the client, right, is in the driver's seat to tune into your own intuition, to see what resonates and to let go of what doesn't, right? And that is how I invite everybody to navigate life. If something in a message speaks to you, my friends, you go for it. Like you listen to that. We know when we know, right? But you don't have to hang on the messenger, right? It's the message that counts, right? And every spiritual teacher is human, right? And we all have our own unique perspective, our own way that we are dancing with the divine, right? And so your job is to find your own. And sometimes we do that by dancing with others, others in the human realm, and by awakening ourselves to spiritual teachings like this very podcast. But the trick is never to disempower yourself, right, from hearing your own guidance. Okay. So that's the first bit, right? And so it's not what the teacher does or doesn't do. The proof is in how you receive the message, right? But there are times I feel, and I'll wait for the guides to chime in, right? That, you know, for me at least, I find myself mainly drawn to teachers that walk the talk, and more than that, show a certain level of authenticity, show a certain level of authenticity versus ego, right? Where they admit, hey, I'm a human being. And I'm doing the best that I can do here. And I'm living my life the way that I'm living it. And, you know, I am allowing what comes through me to the best of my ability. And I am, you know, like all of us are, just we're just walking each other home. We're just walking each other home. And I don't have to be perfect, right? I just have to have, you know, vibe with my highest integrity. And that's the way that I do what I do. And I try really hard to do that because that's what feels good to me. Right. And I don't confuse myself, you know, to the best of my ability. I'm always checking in, you know, with your voice of truth or your voice of reason or your, and, you know, like, no, I love what I do. That didn't even feel good. And I see the work that I do, and the teachers that I'm drawn to is people that are saying, look, I'm walking this human path and this is what I've discovered, right? Or I've found a way to connect with the divine and here's what I'm discovering. And I want to share that with you. I want to share that with you because maybe what I have to share will be helpful for you too. And you'll love it just as much as I do. And that is why I do this podcast. Right. And so I do find myself drawn more to those kind of teachers than the ones that stand up on the mountaintop from a place of ego. And I can feel it, and it just doesn't feel good. Does it mean that I might not like some of what they put out into the world? Oh, absolutely. Right. Sometimes the words are great. There are books from other spiritual teachers that I've read. I was like, wowza, what a great book. And then when I connect with their energy, it's no bueno for me. I don't like it. Right. So we can hold these two things, separately, right? But for me, I'm definitely drawn to those who walk the talk and are authentic and are aware and honest about the fact, they're not standing on the mountaintop saying, enlightened and therefore I am powerful. They're saying, hey, I'm doing this too, and I want to share what I know or share what I've discovered, just in case it's something that you'd like to know too. Right. One of my well, I have a lot of favorites, but one channeler that's popping into my mind, Paul Selig, and he channels the guides. And I've read a number of his books, and they're really quite remarkable. And, he shared on a number of occasions that, he's a trance channel. So unlike me, the information comes through him. And he's not aware of it until after he reads the transcript. Like when he's channeling, he's not, really there. Um, but he said, I've been channeling this stuff for years, but I don't live it. I don't live it. And recently he said he is starting to. But I think that's a really beautiful and honest statement. And I also don't necessarily think it changes or lowers the value of the work that he's putting out into the world. Right. And in fact, for me, the fact that he acknowledges, hey, I'm not getting all this either, is a really beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful statement of authenticity. And I appreciate that. I think it's more about those spiritual teachers that are more old school that feel like they have to be above everybody else, right? That's where we get into trouble because we disown those parts of ourselves that are not resonant with what we have to teach. We have this big out of control, what you might call the shadow side, right? The part of ourselves that we don't want to look at. And if we are not present with that part of ourselves, if we don't love it, if we don't allow it, if we don't understand, I'm a human and I have an ego. And sometimes, my ego is grand, and other times, it gets a little confused. And I love it all. And I just try to show up and be as present and as possible and live in my light. Right. But sometimes that can be hard to do. And so I think there are some spiritual teachers that believe their own BS. They believe I am the messenger. I am above this. I am powerful because I know this stuff, right? And in so doing, right, they fall out of alignment, right, with their higher self. They fall out of alignment personally with the teachings. And whether or not that impacts the information that comes through, well, that depends. And again, your job as a receiver of spiritual and intuitive guidance, right, is to try it on for size and see what feels good to you. Some things you're really going to be drawn to, and some things you're going to go, meh, and that's fine. That's fine. And anyone who does not allow you to have your own lens, right, is someone that is more enthralled with the power and control aspect of spirituality, which is not spiritual at all. Right. And is not really going to be the best teacher to help you live your light. Right. So, for the question of, does the teacher have to be fully enlightened in order for that message to be of value? My answer to that question is no. My answer to that question is no, because again, we are all beautiful emanations of the one divine source, and we're all shining our light to the best of our ability. And sometimes that human conditioning, right, gets in the way, and our beautiful divine light becomes a little bit distorted. Okay. And that is the case for all of us. The confusions, the illusions, the masks, the layers, however you want to say it, that, become encumbrances to us on this human journey. We all have them to some degree, and no one is going to be a perfect messenger, right, of the one divine source. It's not even a goal, right? But the guides say some of us more than others are able to hold those higher vibrations, get out of the way, and share the light. Okay. And they say amongst those people and those moments, you still may find, right? An artist could write a beautiful song and then go home and beat his wife, right? I believe that was John Lennon's story, right? And Imagine, I think, is still one of the most beautiful songs ever written. Actually, many of his songs are really lovely. And, right. So I don't know if that's true, but I heard a rumor. Right. And so, the light can shine through in many ways, and we can embrace the light when it shines through without condoning all of the activities of the human being. But when it comes to spiritual teachers, I think many of us do have that higher goal, right? Because we want to surround ourselves with people that are not just preaching it, right? They're experiencing it, they're living it, they're inviting us, and they're saying, look what's possible, my friend, and you can have some of this too, right? And I think that is a very compelling thing. And I think that when those people are in a place of ego, they may draw to them people that are still in a place of ego, right? Depends on how you interact, right? But I also think in as in this case, and this is what the guides were showing me, right? One of the things that I think is so powerful about this situation with this spiritual teacher who has demonstrated that they are not, acting in the way that we would expect someone to behave, right? That, claims to be so enlightened, or even someone who, a lot of people say, wow, this person's books, um they changed my life, like they were so meaningful to me, and now to hear that they've been behaving in this way, it's really hard for me to navigate. And this is the string of many of these sorts of situations. There's been others in the past, right, that have been called out too. But again, remember, it's the message that matters. And if something awakens you, if something gives you peace or hope or joy or takes you to your own personal next level, it doesn't matter who said it, right? And that moment when it touched you in the way that it did, right? That was the God in them or the God in their words connecting with the God in you, right? And we all can do that for each other, right? No one is all good or all bad. That's just not how it works. We're all a beautiful mix of shadow and light. And that is as it should be. That is as it should be. Right. But I also think that this is an important opportunity for us to remember it is not the messenger that is the point. And when we see these leaders, show us that, it's a beautiful way for us to remember, don't worship the messenger, right? You can honor things about people. You can say, Victoria, I love your podcast. You're so great. You make me feel so happy when I listen to you. My ego would like that very much. Please, please do. But it's not the point. It's not the point, right? It's I like it when people like me. I have an ego. And right, my goal is really to get out of the way, do what I'm here to do. If you embrace it, great. If you don't, namaste. Because I recognize, again, we're all in this together. We're all walking each other home. And I just want to share my light and what excites me as an invitation to go inside yourself and find what resonates and lights you up. Right. And so, if an aspect of my message or this teacher's message or any teacher's message resonates with you, you go for it. You go for it. And if you are like me and you're reading a teaching, you're reading a book, because I'm very empathic, and something doesn't sit right with you, right? You got to trust that too. You got to trust that too. Because this was never my favorite spiritual teacher. Their teachings didn't resonate with me, their vibe didn't land. Right now, I know for many people, they have, and it does. Right. And so, again, for me, I think that I just naturally, because of my own conditioning and my own history, check in with the vibe of the teacher when I'm reading the teachings. Not always. I can think of some counter examples to that, but often, right? And that's fine too. But wherever you connect with the light, right? The message and how it is received by you, right? And where you find truth and alignment and resonance right now, because that could change, but what feels right and true and helpful to you now in the message, that's what I want you to focus on. And please feel free to let the rest go, right? It's hard, my friends, to see power corrupted in this world. It's hard to see people acting in ways that we wish they did not. It's hard for us to see the people, be it our parents or our spiritual teachers or our friends or our spouses or our leaders or whatever, acting in a way that we don't feel matches the degree of integrity that we would like to see in the world. And if you're feeling that way right now, I want you to give you a big hug and a kiss. I'm giving it to myself right now, but it's also a proxy for you. And I want to let you know that you're loved, that you're valued, that you're beautiful, that you're wise, that you're intuitive, that you're amazing, that you're safe, that you're secure, that you're supported, that all is well, to trust your inner vibes and to know that we can all co-create a world where all of us are going to be able to act more and more in our own highest alignment. Right? And what that starts with is loving and honoring yourself, right? And extending to where you can that namaste lens to others. It doesn't mean that we excuse behaviors that don't feel good for us, but it does mean that we understand and allow that everyone is acting to their highest level of awareness in this moment now, and that we are all ultimately beautiful divine beings made of the same stuff. All right, that's it. That's all I got. I like this one. I'm glad I did it. I was a little hesitant, but I hope it lands for you. I did not name names on purpose. You can guess. This is not because I'm not making a statement. It's because I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. And it's more the idea of how we can interact with this and experiences like this rather than calling anybody out or, saying what I think, because it's not for me really about that at all. Okay. But again, you find what feels right and true to you, because that's what matters. All right. I'm wrapping this one up. Love you all and namaste.